Hi everybody, and I have Fiona Blades with me today. Now Fiona is part of a very interesting company who I got to hear about through their work with Cranfield School of Management that was showcased in an HBR article, and the company that Fiona founded is called MESHExperience. And Fiona's going to talk a little bit about MESHExperience and the work they do in terms of marketing investment and customer experience. But first, Fiona, if you just give a little intro to yourself and then we'll get into that topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Stephen. Little introduction then from me. I started my career in marketing on pet food many years ago, and then I moved into advertising at agencies like Lear Burnett. And that was where I realized that it wasn't just the advertising that was going to have an impact on people's brand decisions, that we really needed to understand every experience that people had with brands. I set up MESHExperience in 2006, and we have offices now in London, New York, and Sao Paulo. And I'm lucky enough to be speaking to you from our New York office.
Fantastic. So could you just, now I understand what you do as looking at real-time experience tracking, essentially, and this gets a greater level of detail on how customers think and feel. Do you just want to give us an overview of the type of activity, whether that's correct or whether you want to go a little bit more detail, and then we'll talk how about that helps in terms of marketing investment?
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good description, Stephen. We have this approach that we call real-time experience tracking. And essentially what we do is to tell us whatever they're seeing in terms of the experiences they have during a particular week. So we'll choose a category. Let's say it's something like soft drinks.
Yeah.
And we'll ask people to tell us whenever they see anything to do with Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Lilt, or another soft drink brand. And we do this still through text messaging mainly, but you can do it through apps as well. And we would ask them which brand it was that they've seen, Cola, be Pepsi. Which touch point was that through? Was it TV, online, in-store, seeing somebody else drinking?
Yeah.
And then we'd ask, and how did that make you feel? On a score of 1 to 5, was it very negative to very positive? And how likely did it make you to choose that brand next time? Much less likely to much more likely. So people are going around, they see somebody else drinking Coca-Cola and they send us a text, and then they see a poster that advertises it with a meal deal and they send us a text. And all of those experiences go into an online diary, and
Yes.
there we remind people to upload photos of those experiences and to give us more details about exactly what the poster was, where they were, who they were with. So we get an enormous amount of richness around all of these experiences that people capture. And around that, before they start, we find out their brand perceptions. And at the end of the time that they're working with us, we find out their brand perceptions. We work out which touch points are impacting positively on brand consideration.
That's fantastic. So it's giving greater granularity about what really happens, what really impacts people. Because from surveys, I guess, they're fairly general. After the event, you forget. But there's many things that influence you in the moment that you've forgotten. So this is really shining a light on what really happens. Is that basically right?
It is. It's absolutely that, because you will remember maybe that you've seen a poster, but will you remember that how you felt about that the third time you saw it versus the 16th time you saw it?
Yeah.
And we will know because we've captured that in the moment. So the emotional attachment is also really important, because it's very difficult to recall emotion.
Yeah. And of course, that in the moment, that emotional effect will affect how you behave in the moment and potentially affect how you think after the moment, but you've just forgotten that sense of what it's like. So
Yes, and the interesting thing is that we found for one client, the experiences that their customers were having with a competitor, when they became very persuasive, so they were much more likely to choose that brand, we actually saw churn go up by in 3 weeks. So that was the lag from actually seeing these persuasive experiences coming through to seeing churn in the call center. So that means you can then start to predict what might happen, and you can start to take action from a marketing perspective.
So tell me about the marketing investment side a little bit more, about how you've helped and what your ideas are around this as a better way to judge where you invest in marketing.
Well, the first question we ask from a marketing director is, can you draw a pie chart of where you're investing your money? And normally they can do that. So they'll know that 20% is in TV and 30% is online and 10% is on radio. So they can draw that pie chart. But of course, what we're pushing out as marketers into the market versus what people are picking up can be very different. And so the next question we say is, do you know how people are experiencing your brand?
Yeah.
And of course, much is not through paid media. And some of the most important and powerful moments are things like the consumption moments. They are calling a call center. They're seeing somebody else drinking the brand. And all of these can often be missed when people are just thinking about the investment decisions that they're making. So we pick up all of those experiences, and we can draw that pie chart which says your customers are having only 10% of their experiences through TV, but 20% are consuming the product, and 15% are consuming the product. And what's more, it's seeing other people that is really impacting on brand consideration. So that's where we would start. And then after that, what we've done is we've done a lot of analytics over the 10 years that Mesh has been in existence. And we've been able to see that share of experience, so the share that Coca-Cola has got versus Pepsi, for example, correlates very strongly with market share. And previously, academic work had looked at comparing share of voice with market share. But of course, share of voice only looks at the paid media.
Yes.
And it doesn't even look at what has picked up. It only looks at what we push out. So share of experience is a much better metric in terms of thinking about the growth of your brand. So if you've got a market share of 10%, we would suggest that you might want to ensure that you've got a share of experience of maybe 12% or 15% in order to grow.
Yes. So
beyond, sorry,
no,
you carry on, Stephen.
No, go on. Beyond.
Okay. So we built a model. We built a model around this, which talks about quantity of experiences, which is the share of experience.
Yes.
But it's not just any experience. So we know that experiences through some channels are more important than through others in terms of impacting on brand consideration. And not surprisingly, those are very often the ones with personal contact. So it could be going into a car dealership. It could be speaking to a mobile phone operator on the phone. So the ones that involve personal contact tend to be the most potent. We can then have a look, though, at the difference between a positive experience and a negative experience. And we've done analytics, and it's different for different categories. But on average, if you have a positive experience, it has 3 times the impact on brand consideration that a neutral one has. So it's really important to not just get lots of experiences and look for the most cost-efficient ones, but to try and get as many positive ones as you can.
Yes.
And because we can go down to that granular detail that you described, we can say, how can you get a positive experience? What are the levers to pull? And we'll know whether seeing the TV ad on a Saturday or a Monday is likely to generate a better response. Yes. We'll know whether this message or this message is likely to generate one. So it provides a blueprint, really, for marketers to be able to think about how they should be investing their money.
And what I like is you got the context. It's not a survey question. You know where it was, what it was that people were rating so impactful. But how many people do you need to do this? Do you need hundreds of people to walk the experience and provide SMS data back, or do you need tens of people? What's your advice?
My advice relates to what it is that the client might want to do with the data and what decisions they're going to take. So if it's going to be a very big decision, you need hundreds of people.
Yes.
So in order to do the analytics, we would say you should really have around 600 people.
Yes.
And you might have, let's say, 4,000 experiences from those 600 people. Because you'll want to be able to see if they've had this experience, and not everybody will have had that experience, what impact does it have on brand consideration? So if you need to get to those kind of decisions, we would say you need a larger sample size. If, on the other hand, you just want to have a sense of what people are picking up and what is more impactful in your market, you could probably have a smaller sample size. So even 100 people telling you about 500 or 600 experiences is going to give you a lot of richness when you contextualize that with what Mesh already knows from millions of data points. So you could still get, even from 100 people and 700 experiences, if it was Coca-Cola has 400 and Pepsi has 300, you've still got a share of experience. You can still start to have a look at contextualizing those metrics with what we already know.
I think I also like the fact that you basically make it apparent for people what their experience is in the first place. So if it's a blank sheet of paper, what is our experience? You could easily sit in a room and make stuff up from your previous satisfaction or NPS survey, but you're adding that layer in that explains actually there's a whole lot of stuff that people go through that you're completely missing, to actually explain even from that basis what it is that people are going through, and by segment.
I think that's a very interesting point, and so often when we present the data back, clients are surprised. There are anecdotal things we get, like I remember seeing something about picking up Evian in a song on the radio. So there are all those anecdotal things that come through, which we capture under other. So we always have other.
Okay.
But there are other things as well that clients don't expect. So I remember for one client, we'd been looking at work over Christmas, and the client saw the TV ad with lots of experiences for a competitor, and they said, but this hasn't been on TV. There's been no brand advertising, and we said, no, that brand hasn't been advertised, except it's been in the Sainsbury's ad, the Morrison's ad, and it had been all over the retailer advertising. Yeah. And the client said, well, surely that's devaluing the brand. And we looked at what people were saying in their diaries, and they said, Sainsbury's is getting me in to do this as for my Christmas shop. So they're selling this as a loss leader to pull me in. And we said, well, in this instance, maybe it's not devaluing the brand, but obviously if they keep being on promotion, it will be.
Fantastic. Okay, Fiona, so if people listening to this want to get in touch with you, how should they do that?
We'd be delighted if they would like to. They can certainly contact me personally at Fiona Blades at MESHExperience.com. We have a website which is www.meshexperience.com, so they could go on to that to find out some more information. And we also have a social media presence, so whether through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, there are those forms of social media as well. So I'd be delighted if anybody does want to get in contact.
And of course there's that HBR article, I think it was last year, was it, or a couple of years ago, wasn't it now, I think? Which is a good proof point.
Do you know, it was back in 2012 now.
Oh, right,
I can hardly believe it. September 2012, a fantastic HBR article written by our mutual friends at Cranfield.
Yes.
So definitely worthwhile reading that.
Okay, Fiona. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you very much, Stephen.